Okay, we are now back. The next item that we have is Section 5, discussion items for action at our November 19th meeting. Okay. So we're going to start 5.1, discussion of one-time projects to be funded by excess fund balance. And we're going to start off with, I think, Pam Dubois, you're going to give us a little bit of information before we go to the pages. We are on page 62 in our agenda packet.
Okay, Cabarrus County Schools have submitted their list of one-time projects, and Rowan Cabarrus Community College has added an additional project that's highlighted in blue to their list, which is energy conservation measures for $153,000, and they had a Duke Energy study that was performed and talks about some savings that they could have with a 4-year payback if they were to implement these things at the college, which would reduce their overall operational expenses and utilities after that period of time. Cabarrus County has had a project added to their list, and that would be, next one more page. We have added the joint EMS fire station, which would be located in the Concord Mills area. That would be the City of Concord would be building a facility out there. We spent approximately $375,000 when we did the joint facility with the City of Kannapolis with their fire station, and it would provide us about 1,700 square feet. Of course, there's a lot of economies of scales when you put those two facilities together. So that was one thing that a growth area based on all the traffic and things that are going on in that portion of the county to continue to keep our response times up. So that was a new project. We are still awaiting some results from the senior center with the architect before we'll have final numbers for the potential upfit and the upfit expansion projects. So we will not know those until December of this year. So just wanted to let you know that the process in which that's going through. And then we have the detailed list from Cabarrus County Schools that was provided to us that's in your packet, so for discussion. But I just wanted to point out the changes that were made to the other list that you already had that we've gone over in the past. And this will be your first thorough look at Cabarrus County Schools list. And you've allotted a little over $1 million of the money in the first allocation that went through.
Okay, let's look at, just to kind of do it in systematic order, let's look at page 62 first. That's Rowan Cabarrus Community College, and you see highlighted the energy conservation measures. Do you know, Mike, any specifics on that? I mean, what this amount of money would actually be used for? And
I may defer to Mr. Billett, for he may know a little more than I do, but they had Duke Energy come in and perform an audit on all of their systems there at the South Campus, and this was an opportunity to go in and I don't know technical terms here, but zone the HVAC systems, replace several of the light fixtures, put the variable control devices on them so that they can, if they're not in use, then they would automatically go down to a lower energy level. Replace lights and some other things there. I don't have the details on that, but it was we did confirm that it was Duke Energy that came in from the outside to do this for them. So.
And I'm going to call on Commissioner Burge. I know you don't have a report to look at, but that is in your area of expertise. So any comments? We'll start with Commissioner Burge, and everybody else then can chime in on this project.
We ought to get a list of what they're talking about. Are they talking about replacing lamps, fixtures, or are they going to LEDs? Or, you know, what are they changing to? And how did they come up with the savings?
We can get that for you. We can get the entire plan.
Any other questions about this request from Rowan Cabarrus? Okay, so if you want to get that information by the 19th and then discuss it then, is that?
Yeah, it would suit me. I'd like to see what it is.
Okay. Any other comments on that one? No? Okay, how about look at, let's see, go to page 65. And do you have any additional information on the EMS fire station?
I did. In fact, that's when I just stepped out. I did talk to the city manager, Brian Hyatt. They intend to, hopefully, their goal is to have the location secured by the end of this calendar year. and go into design, and then hopefully construction beginning 2013, summer of 2013. And as far as right now, the discussions have been either purchase our portion of the building or to lease. Right now, there's not been a preferred method as far as city council. However, that is the direction that you chose to go in with the Kannapolis when we combined our facility with the latest Kannapolis Fire Department up there.
When you said that is the way we did it, is that defined as lease or purchase?
Yeah, the lease, correct, yes, the lease.
Is that per year?
No, sir, no. What we did was, it was a 25-year lease with one lump sum. It was a 25-year lease with an additional 25 years for one lump sum.
So this $375,000 is gonna be a lump sum?
That is the preferred method, yes, sir. Whether it's a purchase or a lease, that is where we're at right now. Again, we're still in the preliminary stages, so we're gonna, hopefully in the next month or two, we'll be able to iron those out for you. But that is the intention, is for that to be a lump sum.
Okay.
Okay, so we would not need to make any action on this at our next meeting, because we still need to get some more information just to make sure.
That's correct. We want to make sure that it's on your radar screen right now, and then in the next month or so, we should have some more definite answers for you.
Rowan
Okay.
Cabarrus Community College just stated that it was energy conservation measures. Did not give any more details than that from the information that I had.
We will get with their facilities manager and have them get us a detailed report prior to your next meeting.
Okay, then the other items for the county that are still on page 65. For the senior center, we'll get more information in December to look at, we hope, December or January.
It's December. We have hired, the architect is on board, and they have been working with staff, as well as going through code issues as well, and seeing which is the best option, and then they will be getting back to us so that we can get back to you in December.
And I'll just say, which I've said before, item number 3, which is upfit, I think that, for me, that if the amount comes in at about this amount that we're projecting, then I think that we probably need to look at changing some of the space that's there and make it better use and give them that. To me, that sounds like a good use of funds to upfit the area that they currently have, and then wait on an expansion as we proceed down with other projects as it comes along. But I would be interested in the upfit, and of course I think the EMS at the fire station makes sense, which would be delayed until the spring for us to make a decision. So, anybody have any other comments on the county projects?
I think go ahead, Commissioner Burge.
4, 5, and 6, I don't want to vote on. I don't want to vote for it.
Okay. I would support 6, and the reason why, Commissioner Burge, is that if we were to do that, we would start getting a return on our money, and the reason why you do that is because on the weekends you'd hold tournaments out there, you'd have tourism dollars to come in, and it would also spur employment. It would also provide money back into the county with sales tax and with hotel occupancy tax, so that it ends up benefiting us in the long run, as opposed to being a drain or not having a return on investment. So I certainly understand your position, but I think that if we're going to do a project, that would be a project that's going to get money back into the coffers in multiple ways.
Has there been any discussion with the CVB about possible funding? It's stated here underneath.
We have discussed 2 different things with them. One, what is the potential for exactly that to attract additional youth sports events and even adult sports events. Our soccer complex is a natural turf. It also is a youth complex, so it doesn't allow the adults. So this would provide a multi-purpose artificial turf, so that you could play a multiple of sports, whether it's football, flag football, ultimate frisbee, adult soccer, those. So they agreed that it would be something that they could market, and it would definitely be an asset to the county. We've just talked at preliminary stages on support from a financial So there's no definites there, but.
Okay.
But I do think that they could run the numbers for us to realize, if it were to be put out there, that it would end up having a return on tourism dollars as well as being used and benefiting the community financially.
Are they gonna pay half of it?
They didn't say what they would pay because I mean, if we're serious about considering it, then we can certainly go back to them and talk to them about partnering on some portion, yeah.
Would it be appropriate to, you're on their board, I know you are too, I believe. Would it be appropriate that maybe at our retreat in February, that we put this as an item and try to get some information so that we have
Yeah, we can definitely
a
do
chance
that.
to, that would give them a couple months to be able to look at it and try to come up with some information, just so that, you know, the more information we have, the more informed we are, the better decision we can make.
They offered the last time we were at our meeting to come and make a presentation to our board, to the Board of Commissioners, as to how that would benefit not only tourism, but also benefit the county financially, so that we can get that together, or we can ask that to be done.
Madam Chair, on that one too, I want to just add it because I know that as I call it, I've come to call it over the years, the PEF, or the political exploitation factor, is extremely high with the artificial field complex. Because what happens is that there's a segment of the community that sees that and all they see is, oh, the county's is going to spend $2.2 million on artificial fields. You give me a break. We can go out and play in the ball. We can go out and play in cow pasture. But I know that over a 10-year period of time, and maybe that's what they're going to do, and we're talking about doing this retreat, is there's got to be, if you look at a 10-year life cycle, not just the tourism dollars come in, but what is the difference in maintaining an artificial field versus all the work that has to go into, including the labor costs, everything, to maintain a grass field at the same location. Because I know there's got to be, I think that needs to be, and I'm not going to be here to see it, but I would say that's something that I think that the public should see, to help educate the public why we would even be considering this. Because there's some segment that would see that as nothing but just extravagant overspending, wasting money, wasting taxpayer dollars. And I'm sure that, it's already out there because we've already heard it. But, when you look at the fact that you're not having to do the watering, the seeding, the upkeep care on that you would on a natural grass field, it's going to stay smooth. It's not going to, you're not going to have the holes develop in it. You're not going to have the chance for people to be injured. I mean, there is some injury difference. I mean, there's all kinds of things, I think, that where there's a cost benefit in the long run, if you look at it. And then, over a 10-year period of time, you're probably going to have to replace the turf a couple of times during that period of time when you play on it very heavily.
The tough part about Frank List Park is that the soil base is so minimal that you're not going to be able to put any fields out there, or excuse me, the fields that you put out there are going to be so expensive to maintain. That's the reason why we're having to shut down now for such a long period of time, to get growth back. What this would do is that this would provide the opportunity maybe to have a longer playing season on those other fields, because they're not getting beat up and being used on the artificial turf. But we can get that information, or that information, I believe, can be presented to this board at our retreat or before the retreat. Yeah, we can get it done before then, to understand the dynamics and how it actually does benefit the county as a whole.
Well, and the only reason I suggested the retreat, or maybe at the February work session, is that we know we'll have at least one more commissioner at the retreat. We have an opportunity for education, though I think, all the candidates have been coming to the meeting, so they're pretty much up to date on a lot of things that we're doing, but either at the retreat or maybe in February would be a good time to give us enough time to kind of transition and work towards that. So, okay. Next, page 66, which is Cabarrus County Schools request. There are a number of items on there, so I would open it up for conversation on any of the specific items that commissioners feel like are important or that we need to talk more about. I don't know who wants to start.
I'll start. I think that it's premature right now to talk about a potential elementary school site and a new middle school site. I'd like to get some more information from the school system as to the site location and also some of the other issues that we're talking about. The school system, in regards to elementary, if you're just going on 100%, is at a 95% capacity. At a middle school, they're 91% capacity, and at high school, they're 83% capacity. If you're basing it on the 110% capacity, which we have been looking at for, Commissioner Caruth, 10 years? Mr. Marshall, do you know about how long we've been using the 110% number?
Probably going back to the late 90s.
Okay. Then it's at 86% from elementary school, 83% at middle school, and 75% at high school. We have one elementary school that's operating at a 52% capacity. So I think I'd like to get more information from the school system in regards to the balancing of those numbers to decide, because this is not a decision, I don't think this is a decision of a $2.4 million decision. I'm looking at it as a $20 to $25 million decision, because if you get the land, you got to build the school, then you got to pay for the school on a year-to-year basis. That would be number one. Number two, I'm concerned about priority number 3, which is the replacement of first floor classroom exit locks. These schools that are identified are the 4 of the newest schools in the system. And my question is that a design flaw? And if it is, then it's the architect. If it is a contractor flaw because they put in the wrong thing, then it's the contractor. And they came to us, I believe 60 days ago, and asked for us to consider it. And that's when I asked Mr. Whitkey, is that a design flaw? Is it a contractor? And he said he'd go back to the contractor. And we haven't gotten any further update on that. So I'm leery of approving the $40,000 for that project. In regards to the other ones, I don't have any problems with those. One thing I would ask to get a point of clarification in regards to the Concord High School tennis courts and also the Mount Pleasant High School tennis courts. That's $262,500. We heard tonight that Mrs. Klutz said there's going to be at least $200,000 left over from the Qualified School Construction Bonds, the QSCABs. Is there a way that we can use that $200,000 to fund these 2 projects, the Concord High School and the Mount Pleasant High School? I know that we have projects going on at Concord High School, and is the tennis courts a project that can be fit into that, into those to cover that funding? That's $262. Our number that we showed earlier was about $265, I think. She said it was closer to $200, so I'd be interested in that, knowing that information. I do think it's important to look at these reconstruction of the tennis courts, but I also think that something that's not on the list that I would champion is a field house out at Robinson High School. The Booster Club out there has raised a little over $80,000. They have on their own secured commitments from in-kind work, and they're right at $100,000. And on their own, they've raised at least a third of the cost of the project. So I think that would be something that we should reward an organization that is raising money. All of the older schools have field houses. There's a health issue. We've gotten emails on that as recently as this weekend as health issues go, and I think it's something that we need to look at supporting an organization that's willing to raise money to try and solve a problem on their own. So I'd ask that be placed on this list.
Commissioner Caruth.
How old is J.M. Robinson High School?
If I would guess, it's 12 years old. It may be, I don't think it's 15.
No, it's
So
not 15. It's about 12.
I think it's
So
12.
I guess this camera system out there is wore out by now, right?
I don't have enough
205,000.
information on that. My suspicion is that it hasn't worn out, but they are seeing that they're in need of additional cameras, I think. And I don't think it's because of I don't think that safety is an issue, and therefore they need the cameras because they're concerned about additional issues going on. I just think that they recognize that the camera layout that they had, but I don't have any more information than what's given to us.
Well, it says camera system upgrades. I assume they want to replace the whole system. I don't know.
Yeah.
Why wasn't there a field house built out there when they built the school?
Lack of funding.
Been cheaper to build it in, it wouldn't now, would it?
Yeah.
Lack of funding at the time.
The other thing too, and I'm with you, Mr. White, on this, this number 3, these locks. There's some reason, these schools aren't that old that they would need to replace the exit locks unless they put inferior locks in there to start with. It looks to me like they should be able to go back on somebody.
The comment that we had previously was that at some schools, the exit lock has a bar that goes all the way across the door.
Right.
So you have a whole bar to push in. If you are a kindergartner or a first grader, you're not obviously
They're
that
too
big.
high.
And I don't know, it's not, I haven't been out there to look at it. It's not a bar that goes across the whole door. Apparently, the younger ones are having trouble pushing on it. But I do not disagree with your question if it is a design issue or if they don't have some other recourse, because I kind of felt like that's the information we got before, was that they might have some recourse on the exit locks. That's my recollection.
And on these
Commissioner
tennis courts, from the pictures I've seen, it looks to me like most of the problem with them was a lack of maintenance been done on these tennis courts. I mean, if you don't maintain this stuff, it's gonna deteriorate. And that's the reason, one thing about spending this $2-something million on them ball fields. You know, if we spend $2-something million on maintenance on these schools now, we'd probably save the county over the next 3 to 5 years, $4 or $5 million just on maintenance alone.
Commissioner Carruth.
Yeah, I think that I agree on the tennis courts that I'm seeing those conditions, and I know maintenance is a big thing, but over time, because they're exposed completely to the elements, 100% of the time. And so I think even with maintenance over, I don't know how long they have been there. I guess they were built when the school was built, which has been there for what, 40 years? About 40, 45 years?
School was built in the late 60s.
Okay, so been out there, wow, that's approaching 50 years, but older every day. But yeah. Anyway, support that, and I want to comment about the field house because it's not, for me, deja vu all over again. Wind the clock back 36 years. When I was in high school, our school was a fairly new school. We had no field house. And I remember my first job was working in a work program to basically hauling concrete block, pushing concrete to help get that field house built. And because what we had happen there was our local Board of Education, because we were the only new high school, said, no, we're not going to give you any money for a field house because we'd have to give it to everybody else, and we're not going to do that. And my only concern, I can see from where they're coming from about needing that, is that, yeah, the other ones have field houses, but is it fair for us to go to people in Mount Pleasant and say, we want you to pay for Robinson's field house? Or should we look at overall at how do we look at what needs to be done to the other field houses? If there's anything that need to be renovated, upgraded, and using some of that money that we're for the land to use for that, to see what we need to do about getting them field house, but also upgrading, seeing if the others get upgraded and brought up to some kind of standard, health standard.
My response, or the response that I hear out in my community,
Yeah, I'm
is
I'm sure.
we paid for the other field houses. We paid for the other tennis courts. We're paying for a new gymnasium at Northwest Cabarrus High School.
Yep. So
they're just asking for a field house. And they've raised $100,000.
Yeah. I can say I understand that completely, but I just wondered about that. How do you do that? And you don't.
Chairman Shue said if we were to give them the money, they would build it.
What's the cost of a field house?
The field house is right at $350,000 by design, and they've raised, as I said, a little over $100,000. And when I say raised, they have cash on hand about 80. They have in-kind construction work that will be done, and that gets them to above the 100. So just to be clear on that.
On the list in front of you, do you have other comments?
The only thing is, like I say, until we, I think that this paying for the school sites out of this, until we decide what we want to do exactly with the school stuff, should be delayed. But the rest of that, I don't have, and then like I say, the same thing with the locks. If we can go back to somebody, if it's a design issue or, you know, a material flaw, sounds like a design issue, then we need to be looking at how do we recoup some of that cost of replacing those door locks. You know, the rest of that I have no problem with. So.
Commissioner Eastmer.
Well, I agree with Commissioner White as far as the new construction, that money being delayed. The locks, I agree that's, you know, something that should have already been decided whether or not we can go back on that. Seeing the photographs of the tennis courts at Concord High School, you know, pretty bad disrepair, and I think it's a liability. You know, I think that would be a priority. And certainly the security cameras, I mean, I can understand where that's a priority. I am a little concerned about, I would like to know, you know, as far as J.M. Robinson being 12 years old, you know, what's the issue there? And then with the playground replacements, is that, you know, for the entire playground? Is that because, you know, something's broken, or, you know, what kind of, is it in bad disrepair, basically? Is that the reason it's being requested, or is it just, you know, an opportunity to get a new playground? So I'd like to know more about that.
Okay. As far as the playground goes, what we were told, I think, at a previous meeting, if I remember correctly, is that some of these were built and they're wooden parts, which, being out in the weather, they're in need of repair, and they're in need of replacement. It's not just to have an extra one, it's to take out what's there. I can speak to R. Brown McAllister because I don't know how long ago that would be. When my kids were in elementary school there, we got a county matching grant from the PTSO, had to put up half, and were able to put in some playground equipment at that time. So the playground equipment at R. Brown is at least 15 years old, probably. So I would presume that that's the case at the other ones, that they're old. They've been there for a long time. Coulter Webb, R. Brown McAllister, Mount Pleasant Elementary are much older schools. Carl A. Furr, I believe they said, was adding a playground that is more geared for the pre-K.
Right.
And then the line for Cabarrus County Schools, it's not identified where it would go.
Yeah. Okay.
That's my recollection that was shared with us. I can tell you that at Robinson, all technology gets, even 12 years ago, technology's out of date. I mean, we know that. How many computers have we gone through? So the phone systems in some of the schools, even if it's 5 years old, 8 years old, it's already out of date technology-wise. So to speak to the camera systems, personally, I think those are all items that we should go ahead and put on our consent agenda for next month. I don't think that we need to delay, you know, all of the decisions. We very quickly spent money in Kannapolis City Schools, so I think we need to seriously look at this and what we feel comfortable funding at this time. I agree with you that you said the pictures of the tennis courts at Concord High School, it is a maintenance issue, but whether it's something that should have been done over the last 20 years or not is at this point a moot point, because it wasn't done, and you know, we can increase their maintenance budget. I know that you had asked for more detail in the maintenance budget, so we actually know where the funds are going to. But that was set up because maintenance was not being done up to that point. At least that was the story that was given. They have a limited amount of funds. We have not increased maintenance, and they have increased a number of school sites that they are having to maintain, and yet we have not increased their maintenance budget. Now, not this year, but the last year's budget, we had in there to increase their maintenance budget, and Cabarrus County School says instead of putting it in maintenance, we'd rather it go into operating, which we allowed them to do. But they have increased 5 or 6 schools is my guess, without trying to recall school names, and we have not given them additional funds for maintenance. So and then I asked Mr. Downs about the last item, number 16, emergency generator service and rewire at the Ed Center. And, I mean, I don't want to speak for you, but you mentioned that a generator probably was a good thing for them to have out there.
Well, I mean, we have them here on our building, so we lose the power quite a bit. I'm not quite sure what the frequency that they do, but this will allow them to continue operations if the power goes out.
So, you know, I would suggest that, that we identify, we've looked at, if we go back to Rowan Cabarrus, we want additional information, so I know we understand not funding that tonight, or putting it on a list to be on our November 19th meeting. We've asked for, well, as far as the EMS station, that needs to be a little bit later. We need additional information on the ball fields. We need additional information on the senior center, so I understand why we wouldn't put those on there. But I don't, at this point, I don't see why we would delay completely on Cabarrus County Schools as far as those projects go. I would recommend that we fund 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, which are the camera system upgrades, and 14, 15, and 16 at a not-to-exceed amount. I mean, these are obviously rounded numbers, and I think that they should be treated just like Kannapolis City Schools to provide the invoices to be paid on those, and they can't, you can't move money from one area to another area. It's a not to exceed. I think security cameras are an issue at the schools that they have identified. And all the new schools, you can go to Robinson, you can go to Cox Mill, you can go to Hickory Ridge. All the other schools have playable tennis courts. Concord High School, as far as I know, even back into the 70s, did not have, when I graduated, did not have playable tennis courts. And this is the first time I've actually seen it on a list. So those are my proposals that we do. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 14, 15, 16 this month. And then we continue to assess and wait on additional information for the other projects that have been requested of us.
One other thing I forgot is, one thing I didn't see on the list that I would like to see, and I know
Yeah,
talked about it before,
planetarium.
was the planetarium.
Yeah.
I know we've talked about that a couple times, so
Yeah.
I would like to see that on the list.
And if, and just as a reminder, because I meant to say that about the field house, we did get, maybe 4 months ago, they came with the $180-some million request. You remember that big? They all came in that huge list. I believe the field houses are on that. They just didn't make it to this one. We had, this is more than what we told them we had, but we had indicated to them to shorten that huge list down to something more manageable. And though I could be wrong, I don't have it in front of me, Commissioner Meismer, I believe the planetarium was on that list too. So we can fund as much as we want to fund. You know, that's just a matter of commissioners saying we want to add a certain amount of money. We want to add $300,000 and do the J.M. Robinson Fieldhouse. I mean, that can be added to it, and we can say we want to go ahead with it. We're going to get a lot of emails from every other school, except
Well,
Bob's the only one that won't care. I'm just saying we can add it.
Well, I mean, see,
Whatever you wanna
Robinson does not have a field house to play, to use. They have tennis courts, they don't have a field house.
I'm not disagreeing with you.
So,
Of this list, I said which ones I'd like to fund. If you would like to
I'd say
propose
we
a
ought to.
list and add the Robinson
I would
Fieldhouse,
add the
you
Robinson
can-
Field House,
you
I'd
can
add
do
the
that.
Robinson Field House, and I would say it ought to be 150. I mean, you know, they can raise 150. And we ought to put the Robinson Field House on there at 150.
Okay.
I think, and one question I would like to get answered is, I don't have any problems with the tennis courts. Is that monies, can we use monies from QSCAB for those two projects, since we're doing work on those, at those schools with QSCAB money? And if we,
Are they doing anything at Mount Pleasant High School with QSCBs,
thought they were.
Ms. Dubois? And do you know offhand if they have not, if they did not identify a project to begin with, can they use the money for additional projects? They still have projects on the QSCB list that currently don't have any funds going to them. I mean, even with 200,000 left over, they do have a list of not being able to fund projects that they originally had proposed for the QSCB.
The only project on here was Mount Pleasant High School that I can see, and that was for the new boilers, and they canceled that project because they didn't have enough money. So that would be for Mount Pleasant.
So they're wanting reconstruct the tennis courts as opposed to putting boilers out at Mount Pleasant High School? They're,
Maybe they won't need no heat this winter.
I mean,
They
they're,
still-
not- you know, we are at a disadvantage as far as Cabarrus County Schools because they can't be here tonight. They're in another meeting. So I'm just trying to recollect what we've been told in other meetings. Yes,
Yeah,
ma'am.
on their priority list for Q-Scabs, when they talked about that 200,000 that's remaining, over here on the corner where it said original project estimates, my understanding was that's where they were gonna go with that excess money, was to potentially go back and try to pick up some of these projects. They could probably turn another list back into the state if they wanted to reinstate some new projects. I don't
But-
see why that would be a huge
so,
issue.
let me, okay, well then that begs the next question is, the athletic practice fields for Northwest Cabarrus High School to the tune of $154,000, they have selected that as being more important than the chiller controls at Beverly Hills Elementary.
That's the way it was explained to me, that these were the
And more
projects that
important
they were
than the
doing.
boiler down at Mount Pleasant High School.
These 7 through 11 are not in the order of priority with the excess money, but 1 through 6 were.
And one of the discussions they had about the practice fields, I'm not advocating for or against, but they were talking with the National Guard, Corps of Engineers, where they would get training. In essence, so they would not be paying for the labor, they'd be paying for parts and to house and feed those people for that period of time, so that instead of being the 600,000 that was originally down for that item, it's greatly reduced because of it, and they don't even know if they can come up with that relationship. But I know that's where the reduced amount is. So, and again, I'm not debating or advocating for that. I've put my numbers out on the table, and we need to decide if there is anything that we want to have on the agenda.
I'd ask for $150,000 to go towards the J.M. Robinson Fieldhouse.
Okay, are you okay with my list?
I'm okay with your list.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 14, 15, 16.
Yes.
Well, how about 9 through 13? What's the condition of that playground equipment? Anybody know?
They said that playground needed to be replaced.
Yeah, they're older schools. Some of these are, I think, some ADA issues as well that need to be brought into compliance.
Well, if you get one child hurt out there, it's gonna cost you more than it's gonna cost to fix all of it.
Nope. That's not what the law is.
Huh?
What has been practiced is that sovereign immunity by the school system.
Ms. Dubois, do you have a calculator? Do you have a calculator handy?
Not with me, but what do you need?
I was just gonna add up
Need to add
the
these all
amount
up.
that I was proposing, 1, 2.
Can we find out about the planetarium as well? How much that would cost, what that entails?
Yes, yeah, I've got it down.
We've done away with the space program.
If you take out
We're
nine-
somewhere around
you take-
1.3 to 1.4 million.
1.363 million.
There you go.
If you take out 9 through 13.
Okay. So about 1.36
Yes,
million if we add in
900.
J.N. Robinson Fieldhouse of
At
150,000.
1.413.
Well, I think we need more information for the planetarium. I don't mind adding that, but could we get that for next
Yeah, I
month,
don't-
for December?
I think it's
only
important.
like 70,000.
Sir?
I think it was, from what I recall, I thought it was somewhere around 70,000, but I wouldn't.
I've been, Commissioner
Okay.
Reason and myself have
Yeah.
been championing the
Do you
planetarium. I
want to
think it's
add
great.
70,000 in for the planetarium?
Well, I would like to
See what the
find
price
out.
is.
Yeah, right, see what the price is. I mean, it could be more than 70,000, it could be less, but
Then could we look at that one in December?
1 and 1, 200.
Could we look at, trying to
we
get some more
can find that.
information?
Yeah, I mean,
And-
if we can find out and have it added to the list by the next meeting,
We can find the information based, I know there was some research done on that.
Right.
Do you want us to just add it to the list no matter what the cost, or do you want to wait and see?
Yes, and then we can remove it.
Yeah.
If, at the next meeting, if that's a.
Because you're looking, if it's 70, you're looking at 1.48, so 1.5 is rounding numbers.
Okay, so,
Add it to the list, and
Add
then
it
we
to
can
the list.
address the price if
Okay.
it's.
Yeah.
an
so
issue.
we're looking at, I just want to recap, because that's how I am. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 14, 15, 16, add 150,000 at J.M. Robinson High School towards the field house, add 70,000 towards Central Cabarrus Planetarium. Anything, which is about 1.5.
Okay, we'll
Yes,
get you the
sir.
total of all of these projects plus what you, because you haven't really given us a number for the county projects yet. And then, based on what you've already approved for Kannapolis, and then we'll see if that's within the range that we had originally discussed, and if it's not, then you'll need to tell us that it's okay to increase that range.
Commissioner Caruth?
I have a prediction to make. I predict that starting tomorrow, we'll start getting, well, probably will be a self-fulfilling prophecy here, but we'll start getting emails from Hickory Ridge parents and Cox Mill parents why their field house has not been built. I agree with Commissioner White that they've raised money. I think that we ought to help them out, but I think we ought to be looking at also the fact those other two schools are going to be coming here. And I'm not saying we spend the money immediately, but that same deal. If they raise the money and we're going to match the money, we ought to commit to that, saying that we're willing to do that with them. But I also think that we've got 5 other high schools in the county that have existing field houses. And since all of our high schools are in the same conference with each other, they're using the visitors' locker rooms at these other high schools. And some of those are things that you would probably see in an Eastern European orphanage. It would look nice compared to some of these. And I know, because I played sports in high school, always the visitors' locker room, you never want to treat your visitors like you do your own team. But at the same time, those other field houses that some of them are getting old, I guarantee if you went to Concord High right now, made a photo standing in the bleachers at the band section back towards the field house and compared it to one 30 years ago, it would look identical. You know, so I think those are going to be also, so I think you've got to look at, I'm not saying, I don't have a dollar figure that, but setting aside matching funds, if we're going to match dollar for dollar for what private money raised, that we look at that for these other high schools as well. So that means you're just going to have to do that. I mean, I'm not saying that would be ready for a vote for November 19th, and I won't be making any votes after that, but I'm just, I guess.
Well, I think you make a valid point that
And
if
that's
it's a new
600,
one.
that's at 75 for each, the existing, and 150 for the other two, that's 675,000.
And on that same vein, I would reach out to Concord parents, and I hope that they have some fundraisers to try and help out defray some of the costs on the tennis courts, as well as Mount Pleasant, because, you know, they're very passionate about what they're doing. I mean, they're here tonight, Concord's here tonight, and if they can raise some money, it'll help defray, and it helps the other schools. So that, I think that's important. So if they do have money, that's great. If they're going to raise, if they're going to try and do something, that's even better. Just piggyback on Commissioner Meismer, I would just ask that instead of 70, put in 100 just to be careful for the planetarium, and that way I'm certainly think it'll be under that. Just
Okay, we can make that change. Based on the amount of conversation, and we're going to get to this when we finish all these items, though, this needs to be under new business, I can already tell you, because we're going to need to be able to discuss it in detail. Yes, ma'am.
Very first time you spent $1,051,950.
Is your microphone on?
Sorry. The first allocation was $1,051,950. The projects that you've identified on the Cabarrus County list total $1,510,700 for a total of $2,562,650. Was $4 million the target? And which projects were you looking at under Cabarrus and RCCC that you
Did
might?
you get the original granted money for RCCC? 300 and,
That was done last budget year.
no.
Yeah, it was done in June of last year.
But it's still part of this money. The Upfit project, it's on the list here. You got that as already being approved?
I do not have it on this list because it was approved in June of last year.
Yeah, that was in the budget.
It was with the budget process.
Okay, so you would have the possibility of the energy conservation measures at Rowan Cabarrus for 153. That's still to be discussed.
That's right, 380,000.
True, but it was funded in June of 2012, so she's already taken care of that one, is what
Yeah,
she's
'cause
saying.
I-
We did that in the budget.
I had to
instead of
reappropriate
separate
that
from
this year and
We
move it
changed
to this fiscal year.
Yeah, we changed it when we did the budget. Then for Cabarrus County, still to be discussed would be the senior center upfit, the EMS station, overflow parking, the multipurpose. That goes higher than, all of those will go higher than the 4 million. We already know that, because the ball fields in itself is 2 million, over 2 million. And then you'd still have the playgrounds and land at Cabarrus County Schools. So as is normal, we have more requests than we have funds identified available.
How much funds is left if you take this 2.5 out of that?
If you do 2.5 and we were at 4, then 1.5's left for us to look at unless we make any other decisions.
No, but
That's all that one time,
So-
all that one-time funds. That was what?
But then if the EMS site, gets closer to the end of the budget year, or if, all these are based on the budget, I mean, if things start
These are-
looking good, the last half of the fiscal year, then we may have some leeway. I mean, we're almost at the end of the, first 6 months. You want
no,
to chime in?
these are not in your operating budget. These are fund balance. They're separated, so. Again, $4 million is what you talked about to begin. If you want to go to 5, I mean, if you see projects that are that important, then.
Let's hold it at 4. Let's see what the number is, the numbers are, and then on the 19th, we can say yay or nay.
Okay.
Okay, well, those are the items that we will put, we'll take out of here, put into the attachment for the 19th for us to look at. And then we'll have all of these items identified. In December, at least based on these numbers, we'll still have about 1.5 million. We can look at it December or January based on getting more information back to us to be able to make a more educated decision. Okay?
I think
We're okay?
I think between the two of us, we'll have this list for you for your regular meeting too. So just to recap, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 14, 15, 16. We created number 17. That's the field house up to 150,000.
150.
150.
Okay, I thought you said up to 50.
No, no.
No.
And then created number 18, which is the planetarium,
Planetarium.
up to 100,000.
Yes.
That's what you guys have approved for tonight. We've not made any direction one way or the other on the county projects yet.
Correct.
The county projects, we're supposed to be hearing from the CVB in regards to the
To the ball
fields.
fields,
The senior center, we're supposed to get an update.
right?
And 378, we're just trying to figure out, is that a lease or is that a purchase?
Right.
Okay, is everybody good with that? Yes? Okay. Just want to make sure. Okay, you're good. Okay. Let's go to 5.2, which is the Helms Hall replacement. And Kyle's here, Jonathan, to talk about out at Camp Spencer.
This year's budget included the planning and design work for the replacement of Helms Hall. We're also assessing the other buildings that are there as part of that process. We put out an RFQ, had 5 submittals. We interviewed 3 of those firms, and we're recommending the combination of Shook Kelly Architecture and Site Solutions to perform that work.
Any questions?
Where are they from?
Both of those firms are in Charlotte.
Did anybody from Cabarrus County?
We had 3 firms from Cabarrus County that we interviewed, that submitted. We interviewed 2 of those. We did select these firms because it is a very tricky area with the erosion we're experiencing there, the fact that we're going to have an off-site septic field, and that group was the one that represented both the ability to do it the best as well as the most knowledge of the project coming in.
Any other questions? Okay, again, this was included in the budget. Okay, the next item we have is 5.3, usage agreement with Rowan Cabarrus Community College.
Mr. Cook wrote this agreement, so if you have any questions on the agreement itself, he could answer those. But we had forwarded this to Rowan Cabarrus Community College, and I said in the summary that they had received it but had not requested any, had not provided any response to us. They have in fact responded. Mr. Downs and I talked to them about it last week, and they are fine with the agreement as written.
If I may just, excuse me, make one comment about it. We termed this a usage agreement rather than a lease, just because of the legal connotations that arise from a landlord-tenant relationship. Their usage of this space is non-exclusive, so they'll be sharing it with the sheriff's department and maybe some other entities at various times.
EMS is already.
So that's the reason that it's termed the way it is.
Well, you say it's not exclusive, and that, you know, you said EMS sheriff will, if other groups, you know, publicly oriented groups would like to use that facility, is there going to be a way for them to use that, or who do they come to, the county or to the college, or especially that, you know, the meeting space up there?
When you, right now, the sheriff's office is
But can kind of be the manager of the space.
Yes.
Okay.
In fact, the only thing we've used it for on the outside now is it was the board of directors meeting for RCCC at the time. The space that the BLAT and the court or the corrections classes are in, that's pretty much booked solid. Our EMS lab, that would not be open for the public to use.
I understand that. I'm just talking
it's
about
only
that.
the one large room that
Yeah,
would
that's
be
what I was
available.
talking about. Is where you.
That's
have-
correct.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, the next item we have, Dennis Testerman is here, being very patient with us.
3 items.
He has 4 items. First one we have is a grant proposal to the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation, page 76 in your agenda.
So earlier in the summer, we submitted a pre-proposal to the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation for money. It's actually, the money's coming from a grant from Wells Fargo to the foundation, and found out several weeks ago that our pre-proposal didn't fare as well as we had hoped that it would, but that we had an opportunity to submit for another cycle that was coming up, and the deadline for that is, I think we've got there December the 3rd. So in an effort for you all to have some input into that, we are bringing that to you tonight. If we get approved for that grant, we would, of course, be coming back to this board for your comments and ultimate approval of that, entering into some kind of relationship to accept the grant. This grant, the main thing I think that you would be interested in would be the matching funds, and what we had put in the pre-proposal was to use some of the rollback tax money that's been coming back into the county funds after land is being sold. There is, one of the more recent properties that is sold is the Holland Farm on Dorada Road, and the Hollands actually gave to the Conservation District, donated outright the 100-year floodplain. The total, from what I understand, the total revenues that came back into the county were, I believe, $99,000, and so we're hoping to use that money as a match, and then in-kind match, staff time, those sorts of things.
Just for clarification, the Board of Commissioners had set up a fund for properties that have been in the deferred value program. When those are sold and leave the program, they have to pay 3 years of back taxes. You would set up a fund that money is going into, and that's what he's talking about with that.
Right, and currently, currently,
Money's
the
being
policy or the practice has been, I'm on,
Yeah.
yeah, the policy has been that money has been going towards the Elma C. Lomax farm. So that'll be another discussion as we get into budget times, as to will that funding go to these type projects, or will it continue to go to the farm? So, but this is just to allow our soil and water board and staff to go ahead and apply for these. And then once we get, if we're awarded the grant, then you guys will be able to make that decision then.
Okay, any questions? Okay. Next
Am I on a
one.
roll?
Yep, you're on a roll.
Okay.
You got 4 in a row. So, you can
So
click 'em all.
the next one is a grant application to the North Carolina Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services for their Ag Development and Farmland Preservation Trust Fund. We've been before you before for these. This is, the next cycle is coming up. It's due mid-December. And we are intending to apply for another grant through that. The hope there, in terms of the match on that, we would be applying for money from the state, and the match would be the landowner would be agreeing to accept less value for the land than it's worth. That would be their match, and then our intention would be, if we're awarded that grant, we would be going then to the federal government for the Farm and Ranch Land Protection Program money, just as we've done in the past for the porters. So.
Any questions on this particular grant? Okay, next.
So next up is a contract. The Division of Soil and Water Conservation was transferred last year during a major reorganization of state government from the Department of Environment and Natural Resources over into the Department of Ag and Consumer Services. And so part of the way, they do things differently there. And so they've decided that they want to, the funds that have been coming to the county ever since I've been here, we've been getting some money to defray salary expenses and operating expenses, and then also we've been getting what we call matching funds. Some of you would know that that's money that our board came to you all, I think, last year or year before last, $3,600 that we've put into one of our line item accounts. So they're wanting to put all that money into a contract now, all together in one contract. I think the, well, they want to do it that way, and so we don't have any choice in the matter. If you want the money, that's the way it's being done. I think the plus on your side would be that the money will be more officially encumbered. It's less likely to be recalled in Raleigh by the legislators as they deliberate on their business there. A little bit more of a guarantee that you're actually going to see that money.
Is that contracted every year?
This is the first year they've done the contract process. Those funds have come into us, like I said, every year since I've been here. The matching funds go way back, and the money to defray salary and operating expenses, that's been going since the late 80s. Same money, different, just a different way of getting that into the county.
Right. But would that be a yearly contract? Is that the way it's set up, or? Annual?
This is new, but I think the way this one is set up now, it's a multi-year contract. If it's not, that's for sure where they're going with that. They don't want to beat us to death with this process year after year, so they're trying to streamline it as much as they can.
And we don't know how many years the contract would be.
It appears to be 3 years based on my
Thank you.
reading of it.
3, okay.
Okay, any other questions on that? Okay.
And last but not least, we've been before you several times talking about stormwater retrofits being done at Cox Mill Elementary School. You previously had donated a conservation easement on the 100-year floodplain there. That and then the other easement to be put into place is an easement on the stormwater practices that we've actually put on the ground there. So it's coming up to, it was 5.04 acres at the time we drafted this. I think we cut off just a little bit, so I think it's going to come in less than that the way we're doing it now. But anyway, this is just a standard process for protecting the work that's done there, so that if there's any maintenance work that needs to be done in the future, the easement is already on there. The easement value of that is also part of the match that we stated to the state on the front end when we were making the grant proposal. This would be part of the match provided by the county. So the construction out there is essentially finished. There are some plantings that remain to be done, but now's the time to go ahead and get the access easements recorded.
Okay, any questions about the easements? Okay. Maybe it's a good thing for you to be the last one up, Dennis, because, but yours are fairly straightforward, so we appreciate that. Okay, next thing that we have on our agenda is approval of the regular meeting agenda. If you'll flip to the next page, next 2 pages. I would like to make a suggestion as far as on the consent agenda, if we can take item number 3, which is the one-time projects, and move that down to new business and make that G1 of new business. And what we currently have under new business, G1 and G2, move those back up into the consent area. So F would now go through 12. We would put G1 as, if we renumber, would be F11, G2 would become F12, and under new business, G1 would be discussion of one-time projects to be funded by excess fund balance. If that's okay with everybody, or if anybody has another suggestion, if not, I would accept a motion that we approve the regular meeting agenda as I have just discussed. Yes, sir.
There is an allocation request, the reallocation request from the school system for the QSCABs under F6. What is that? We didn't have a presentation on that tonight.
Ms. Dubois, do you know?
F6. Why didn't we get a presentation on they want to move money around?
Let's move that to G2.
That's fine.
We'll move, so we're going to move F3 and F6 will become G2. Okay, anything else? Okay, with those changes, I accept a motion that we approve the agenda for the regular meeting. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. We do have a need for a closed session this evening. So at this time, I would accept a motion that the board convene in closed session to discuss matters relating to the location or expansion of industries or other businesses in the area, and to consult with our attorney to preserve the attorney-client privilege authorized by General Statute 143, 318, 11A4, and 11A3. Do I have such a motion? I have a motion. Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And all agree, 5-0. So at this time, we appreciate everybody at home watching, and we will move to the conference room. Thank you.